All right, everyone. The Parkland students have been going around sort of protesting, shootings, and we need more gun control, gun reform now, hashtag stuff like that. I'm gonna say something blunt and obvious that a lot of people are too fucking cowardly right now to say. You can grieve their loss, the fact that their school was shot up, and I would, because mass shootings are no good. Anytime somebody is harmed, especially if they've done nothing, especially if they're their child, it's a terrible thing. But I'm just going to come out and say it because nobody else seems willing to do so. Just because a person has been through tragedy recently, is grieving, does not mean any legal or social or political proposal they happen to make on the issue of why they're grieving carries any additional weight whatsoever. The opinion of a Parkland student seeing a mass shooting is no different than it was before that shooting occurred on the topic of gun control. So when I see that they're saying, well, we want to stop, death, so we want to ban assault rifles, which don't exist. Ban assault rifles if you want, because no civilian in the U.S. owns an assault rifle. The AR-15, the civilian model that people carry, is not an assault rifle. It's a sporting rifle, but, in legal literature, in California aside, that's generally understood by people who know anything about firearms. You don't even need to be a gun enthusiast to understand this, but it is true. So, they want to ban assault rifles and bump stocks, and then Trump goes along with them. It's like, he's crazy for doing that. I don't know what he's trying to do. He's trying to cut his approval down. He felt like he was getting ahead in the polls too much. He wants to handicap himself so he can keep playing cat and mouse, I guess. He wants to keep up the good struggle because it amuses him, so he wants to lose a few points off his approval. He saw that it was drawing even with his disapproval. He got upset because he's like, well, now I'll have a mandate. Shit. People will expect me to do, now that I have a mandate, I can do what I want. They'll expect me to do Mar-a-Lago stuff less and not go play golf. So I guess I have to go back to the White House. Fuck it. I have to work 2-3 days a week now instead of just one, which is how our modern political system works. It's not just Trump, but in all honesty, it's cracked. If you want to stop death, if you want less dead children, instead of doing the NIMBY out of sight, out of mind thing like the Democrats and Republicans in Congress do, why don't you focus on opposing war? Why don't you try to force Congress to have to declare war in order for acts of war to occur instead of just having this weird system we have now where the president, Bush, can go into a foreign country, kill 500,000 people. It's not even considered an official war. Trump can keep droning people. Obama can drone 50, 60,000 civilians in Yemen and Pakistan in a few years. That's okay. Not an act of war. We bombed your airfield, says Trump, but it's not an act of war. No world war was actually declared. By the way, can I say something about the hypocrites, especially in the Democratic Party within Congress, on the issue of gun control? People need to understand this. You had no problem with Obama giving automatic weapons to cartels. You had no problem with Obama giving missiles to the FSA, Islamo-fascist groups that were, slaughtering civilians just like ISIS does. Those are fine. No gun control needed. U.S. should be able to sell arms to any other state actor in the world, including some of the worst human rights violators. We sell all sorts of weapons to the Saudis. We sell all sorts of weapons to Qatar. We sell all sorts of weapons to Kuwait. We sell all sorts of weapons to all of these countries. Egypt, Turkey, and Israel. The whole Middle East is full of U.S. weapons. People love U.S. weapons because they work really well. It's expensive. They work a lot better than the stuff that the post-USSR Russian state will sell them. These days people are almost preferring Chinese manufactured arms, Vietnamese arms over Russian arms because they're so terrible. Other than their anti-missile systems, which are top-notch, which is worrying to people. So thousands and thousands of people get killed by U.S. forces, and probably hundreds of thousands by weapons we've sold sometimes to even tin horn regimes. We do supply half of those warlords in Africa with weapons too, right? We supply cartels and guerrilla movements in Latin America that run drugs with weapons, right? Do you understand how many fucking people have been killed as a result of our foreign policy and our trade deals on armaments? We use middlemen to sell armaments to states we don't even like. Oh, we made money. Well, yeah, good for us. Or we have all these surplus late-era Bradley tanks. Somebody's got to use them. Hey, Kenya, you want some Bradleys? It'll be fine because you're fighting like drug warlords or Janjaweed rebels or something. They're not going to field anti-tank guns, so it'll work just fine. Here, ship a couple dozen of them. Go slaughter. Go have fun. Yeah, we do that all the time, and yet people in Congress want to talk about dead kids. You realize how many dead kids we've generated? Now, I'm not saying, by the way, before anyone jumps down my throat from the right wing, I'm not saying, well, fuck the U.S. troops. No, praise the U.S. troops, By keeping them out of harm's way, by not arming people who might meet them on the battlefield. Why don't we have a sensible foreign policy? Meanwhile, we have a national debate every time a few people are killed in the United States. 2-3 people get killed, it's a national debate over whether civilians here can be trusted with a pea shooter. But we have no national debate when it comes out that Obama's giving 10 times that firepower to a cartel that literally makes money killing people down in the Yucatan. While at the same time saying, well, Trump is evil for wanting to build a wall, but Obama wasn't evil for making sure thousands of Mexicans were, and border agents, by the way, were killed by cartels armed in secret by the scandal down there with, what was it, Holder or whoever it was, running Fast and Furious. That's not a problem. It's okay. We were trying to entrap the cartels. Seriously. We were trying to trace the weapons. Oh, whoops, we lost track of them all. Whoops, a couple border agents got killed by those same weapons. Whoops. Anyone can make that mistake. We have war raging all over the world. We've got all sorts of problems in this world, and you're worried about civilians here owning sporting rifles. I'm sorry, but to the Parkland students, if you want to stop death, that's not the way to go about it. I'll tell you what would stop death. Now, it's threefold. Number one, you should be encouraging the government here to end the drug war. Number two, you should be encouraging the government here to end its policy of, hey, we can attack anyone we want without declaring war. No oversight, no problem here, as long as it's not complete, utter genocide and total on-the-ground invasion. It's just drone warfare. Nobody cares. Yeah, that's taken a lot of lives. Number three, more government transparency. By the way, do you find it a little bit odd that everyone's saying, well, Donald Trump is Hitler? He's the worst president we've had. He's probably a fascist and he's an evil bigot. But we should give him the right to disarm people. Isn't that a very strange statement to make? Yeah. I would think the U.S. civilians, who by and large are peace-loving and law-abiding, I would rather trust them with automatic weapons than give even those same civilian sporting rifles to a cartel or to the FSA. I wouldn't want to give them the time of day, but our government arms and funds them all the time. Hundreds of thousands of people die, but that's all right. Drug violence and cartel, gang hits and everything. No, that's all fine. Don't worry about any of these other classes of crime except for shootings involving sporting rifles. The reason they focus on it is because some nut with a sporting rifle tends to have a higher kill count. But 10 times more people are going to be killed by handguns in single-actor scenarios. Robberies, home invasions, domestic violence, some random gang drive-by, random shootings of various kinds over drugs or over property. 10 times more people will be killed this year by handguns than by sporting rifles, but you don't hear about that. You don't hear about it at all. There's the real bulk of gun crime within the country, and a lot of it's suicide. Nobody wants to address why so many people blow their own heads off either. It's not because they're psychotic enough to kill other people. If they had a sporting rifle, it would still be a single-actor killing. They're probably not using their AR-15 to kill themselves, but they could, I guess. Rig it up to a Rube Goldberg machine. They press a button and a coconut has to slowly spin around the room to pull the trigger. Now, they could. They're probably just using a handgun, though. But what's the underlying cause? And by the way, can I ask one last question? Another unpopular one to state, even though it makes sense. It looks like the Parkland shooter was constantly bullied and that the school there did fucking butt-fuck nothing about it. Do we want to perhaps address the fact that we have so many teachers in this country who won't do their fucking job? So many teachers in this country are like, well, I'm part of a union, I can never be fired. I don't have to care about things. It's going to cause a lot more crime long term. It's less evident, it's less visible, but it's just as much tangible in there. You have teachers that underserve some of these communities. Some kid goes on to have all sorts of problems in life and maybe get involved in crime simply because their teachers sucked. Didn't teach them right. I would think that would be the most grave disservice of all. Maybe if those teachers tried a little bit harder and then we busted up those unions and fired the teachers that weren't doing their job, got more resource people in there. When people are depressed, they're being bullied, they're feeling bad, we actually give a damn about them instead of saying, oh, you feel aggressive towards people? Here, really want to kill people, put on this uniform, Uncle Sam will pay you for it. Trust me, they're going to start a proxy war in your lifetime. Probably 10, 20 of them. You can go off and kill all sorts of people. Huzzah, hurrah, praise America. No. I think that we poorly serve the entire population when we have this kind of debate, and we assume that because somebody's been involved in tragedy, they magically know more than the average person. And by the way, you want dead kids if you don't take them seriously. If you don't agree that we need to ban assault rifles, you love dead children. You love school shooters and you're a violent, horrible person. No, it's called banning assault rifles won't stop those shootings. They'll park a truck full of fertilizer out front instead. They'll kill just as many people, possibly more. Timmy McVeigh didn't need an assault rifle. I think that was during the assault rifle ban period, if I remember correctly. Wonder why he chose to use the type of weapon that he did. Yeah, maybe 10 times more people died as a result. You know, sometimes you're going to get someone in society, they're psycho. It's just the way that it works. Unfortunately, occasionally they're going to actually get away with killing a bunch of people. They won't be stopped by the resource officer or by a teacher with a gun or whatever. That's another thing that Trump's proposing. And this has been a proposal the Republicans have made for like 20 years. Arm the teachers, arm the clergy. I can remember back like in the Bob Dole days, that was something they talked about. It could have an effect, but again, why don't we just try caring about people who are being mistreated and ill-served by the school system? Better mental health care. You know, instead of kicking people to the curb prematurely and giving them antipsychotics. That's the other part. Why does it seem like every mass shooter is on antipsychotics or some other sort of pharmaceutical doping themselves up? Why does it seem like there's such a strong correlation there? It's the biggest correlation there is. It's a bigger correlation than, hey, they used a certain kind of weapon. But we never even have a discussion about it. You're considered like a conspiracy theorist. Oh, yeah, this antidepressant that may cause psychotic rage couldn't possibly be responsible. You know, maybe it's the fact that instead of giving a shit about people having any therapy, intervention by friends or family, them being able to speak their mind, in liberty online and maybe achieve catharsis, maybe it's because we just blame video games and their brain chemistry and hand pills out like candy to these people. Maybe that's the problem. No, you love dead children if you suggest that. It's about the guns. The gun is to blame. That inanimate object that only fires when acted upon by another object capable of firing it. The gun is responsible. No, it's not. You might as well say the bullets are responsible. Oh, it's not even about the guns. We should just ban ammunition. Ha ha ha. We found a workaround, the Second Amendment. Yeah, there are people that have suggested that, and it's just as dumb. Now, the Parkland students is like, yeah, sorry for your loss, but the proposals you're making wouldn't actually have stopped this from happening. It wouldn't stop your bullied classmate from snapping and probably killing a bunch of people. What would have been the difference if he had had a couple of 9mm? He would have been able to legally purchase them. Background check wouldn't have picked it up. Look, you can't just unilaterally say, oh, anyone who's mentally ill can't own a gun. Which mental illnesses are you talking about? You'd have a constitutional struggle over what you could add to that list anyway. They wanted to add can't own gun to the no-fly list. They can't even do that because it's also unconstitutional. Doesn't make any sense. Legally speaking, it would be outside of the law. It wouldn't work, number two. And it's hypocritical when Congress tries to morally grandstand and clutch its pearls. Think about this. The people in Congress are responsible for all sorts of death all the time. Are they really the ones that should be making this decision? And why, if the government is run by an evil dictator or fascist, would you want them to gain the power to take your guns anyway? Are you nuts? You'd have to be nuts.